Hey,
Hello, baby.
hello. Wow, it's been quite a while since our last video.
Yes,
Here on Aeon Arcanum,
our
Gnostic
last
Scripture.
journey down the
Review.
deep, dark rabbit hole that is Gnosticism.
Yeah, it's been a while. Just been dealing with a lot of shit over here. Life,
Falling off the face of the earth.
you know how it goes. Yeah, basically. But now we're back on a whim, and now we're here to talk about the virgin birth and
God,
the.
I'm glad I'm not the life. I'm glad Jesus is the life and not me. 'Cause life's a bitch. I don't want to be a bitch. I'm not
Yeah.
saying he's a bitch. I just don't want to be a bitch because being life would be bitchy.
What are you saying? You don't want to being birthed from Gabriel's cum inside of Mary?
Now you went too far. It was his word.
I know.
Not. Oh wait, no. Hold on. According to Clement of Alexandria, it was his spermatic word.
uh
See.
ah.
Well, anytime you read that in ancient, that is a good point. Anytime you read that in ancient Christian writings, anytime they say the spermatic word, they're specifically referring to the doctrine that Gabriel spoke and he turned into, he transformed, he went through her and he came inside of her and he became Jesus, the fetus. And then he grew to be Jesus and then he was given birth to, and it's in the Epistle of the Apostles.
Yeah, let's read that for our
Let me
viewers.
pull it out, but it's straight up in the Epistle of the Apostles, and this is a second century writing that, for all we know, is probably written by the Presbytery of Rome or the popes or something. This stuff is crazy right here. It
Hmm.
it says in chapter 14, do you know that the angel Gabriel came and brought the message to Mary? This is Jesus speaking, by the way, at a post-resurrection appearance. And we said to him, yes, O Lord, that's the apostles. And he answered and said to us, do you not remember that I previously said to you that I became like an angel to the angels? What do you think of that?
Hmm. I became an angel among the angels, and I became all things. Yeah, that sounds vaguely ascetic. I don't know. What do you think?
It sounds very Simonian. And it says, and it sounds very much like Paul. And it said, and we said to him, yes, O Lord. And he said to us, at that time Jesus appeared in the form of the archangel Gabriel. See,
Yeah.
to the Virgin Mary and spoke with her, and her heart received me, but some translations say her ear received me. She believed and laughed. Okay, what's interesting is you see this in Renaissance iconography all over Italy, all over Greece, all over the place. Um, well, the Muslim Turks have a bunch of land and all this stuff in the east in Turkey.
Hmm.
It says she believed and laughed, and I, the Logos, went into her and became flesh, and I myself was servant for myself in the likeness of an angel. Like him will I do, and after it I will go to my Father. So the belief that Jesus is God is a different belief than the belief that Jesus is an angel. He's Gabriel,
Hmm.
the Word of God. So this is a subordinationist view, and all the early Roman Catholics are subordinationists, which is an Arian position where you believe that there is a superiority of the Father to the Son to the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
They have a ranking system, like the three, like you have bishops, deacons, and presbyters, right?
Yeah.
Well, the same church has deacons, presbyters, and bishops. Well, they have it modeled that way after the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It's supposed to be a trickle down system.
Yeah. And Tertullian kind of created the Trinity, right? I mean, he created the whole Trinitas. It's a Latin term.
Well, yeah, he stole the term from the Valentinians. The first to make
Yeah.
to ever use the term Trinity were the Valentinians.
Yeah, it's the three natures, but
Right.
but then he says he tells us, oh well, it's just God, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Right, the way he teaches it is weird, but there's even different views among the early churches that, well, is the Holy Spirit just the spirit of prophecy? Is it just Jesus is the fulfillment of prophecy when it says he is born by Mary and the Holy Spirit? It's a natural birth through Joseph and Mary, but what it is that when he's born by the Holy Spirit, being born by the Holy Spirit means your birth was prophesied by the
Hmm.
prophets.
Hmm.
That's directly what they're stating. That gets lost in translation now because we have the Gospel of Luke and we have the virgin birth, and so we think, oh, surely he's teaching that. No, this is the virgin birth is just the martyr's view that gets put into the Gospel of Luke later because him and Marcion were enemies with each other. So naturally, his church would have added that in
Hmm.
because they want to refute Marcion and say, look, you don't even know how to follow your own gospel, dingus. Look at this. You know
Interesting.
what a klutz you are, Marcion.
Yeah, and Justin Martyr, he has a lot of Simonian beliefs himself. So the
Yeah,
Orthodox the Orthodox wasn't really that clearly defined back then.
What do you think of this? Dionysius of Corinth points out that it's like the late second, early third century. Early third century. He's pointing out that in the early church there was actually two bishops at Rome. At Rome, two bishops ran the church from Paul and Peter. There's a bishop of the Gentiles who was second place, and there was the bishop of the Jews who was first place at Rome. And that was the hierarchy. So Marcion was essentially competing to be, or might have even been, the bishop of the Gentiles. Because if you think of the name Marcion, where's this name come from? You never see this name anywhere. It's not in all these documents. Marcion. There's no documents of Marcion. That's strange. It's a weird name. It's like he's the only guy in history named Marcion that early.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he named Marcion? Well, Mar is a title, my lord. It's a title of respect in Syriac, in Aramaic,
Yeah.
right? So it's like saying rabbi in a sense. It's a term of endearment for elders, presbyters, and bishops. Okay, so a bishop would have been called Mar, and they always were in the Syriac church, and still are to this day.
Yeah.
So if they're going to be called Mar, in other words, that's them revering the fact that Marcion is a bishop.
Mm-hmm.
He already is a bishop. He probably is the bishop of Rome for the Gentiles for the period that he's there until he gets excommunicated or until he leaves or dies or whatever happens.
See, so really, Marcion is really more of an Orthodox figure if you really think about it. But in all of time, was
Right, Marcion's a pretty orthodox figure. He's really not a Gnostic. He finds Gnostic things in Paul and he interprets them in his own weird kind of Catholic fashion, semi-Catholic. Marcion's definitely he's not an actual Gnostic.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I don't. He does.
No, he's just he's a reactionist who's just he's a very pro-Gentile person. Not that he hates Jews, but he's very pro-Gentile. People have tried to say he does, but
yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, I hear that argument all the time, but it's bullshit.
yeah, there's no like evidence for that.
Yeah, if you actually read Tertullian, he actually says that he's very accepting for the Hebrews to come into his church.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
that completely
Right.
dismisses that argument.
In fact, he would have been because he would have been concerned that it was his mission given to him by Christ through Paul and the apostles to actually, Paul being the only real apostle in his opinion, would be to convert the Jews to save them because it's an act of love.
Yeah.
Kind of like the twisted notions of the Baptists nowadays that they need to save everybody and yada yada evangelicals.
Right.
Yeah.
But Marcion, he was more of a logician, and he didn't.
He's a fanatic.
Yeah, he didn't really like to read things allegorically like Valentinus did.
I think Marcion is a big time crybaby and fanatic. I think he comes from the right reasons, but I think he is a fanatic. I have a feeling he was.
Yeah, he's a lot more literalistic than.
He's very Martin Luther in his fanaticism.
Well, I mean, Martin Luther kind of took Marcion and kind of ran with it. For this shit.
Yeah, it's questionable whether he ever read anything about Marcion, though.
Yeah, I mean,
I've never seen evidence for it. Maybe he did. I haven't read a lot of Luther. I don't find him that interesting.
Yeah, I don't really care for Luther, but there are some. I think there are some similarities between.
Oh yeah, there definitely is.
And his theology. Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many doctrines like this in the second century that are crazy. I mean, you have the case of like doubting Thomas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have a gospel that says, see, in reaction to Marcion, here's another thing they had to do in reaction to him. Not only did they have to establish a canon to compete with him, or begin to formulate one, which was a 22-book canon early on. If you read Irenaeus, it might have been 23.
Right.
But I think it's just 22. I think, well, I got various reasons on that. But anyway, it's a short canon, 22 to 23 books. So there's 5 to 4 books left out, right? What they're doing is they come in with the virgin birth, they come in with all this stuff, the genealogies, blah, 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 to reply to him. So they have to come up with a lot of stuff, like they need eternal punishment in hell. They need this Satan who is a single figure, like an angel. And they need salvation by works and all this other stuff.
Now, where does the doctrine of hell really come from?
Well, hold on, don't go into that yet, because look, the doubting apostle thing is a good example, because Marcion, he said that he was above the apostles, or they accused him of that. They accused him of thinking he was above the apostles. How could he make these shots and these calls and the apostles didn't do this, blah blah blah. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but the thing is that like in John, you have it where it's like the apostles are ignorant. They all fall away at the end. They're all ignorant. When Mary comes to them, they don't believe anything she says. They're all
Yeah,
doubters.
they're all
And then
dumb.
suddenly, oh no, we just have to focus on Thomas doubting because his name was there. It didn't say all the apostles. Okay, let's pick that guy. But this is a scene that's added from the Epistle of the Apostles, which is how long? 54 chapters? Something like that?
51, 51. Yeah, it's 50 something.
51? And the thing is that when they're doing that, they take this scene from the Epistle of the Apostles where it's actually Andrew, Peter, and Thomas that
Mm-hmm.
doubt. And so they go, well, it was just them. And then later they decide, well, it was just Thomas.
Hmm.
Why? That part I haven't figured out. I don't know why they do that, but the thing is they start adding that in and they narrow it down to Thomas because Peter and Andrew aren't very important to the Gnostics.
Yeah.
Thomas, very important to the Gnostics.
Mm-hmm.
He's like an archbishop among the Orthodox, among Gnostics. You know, they look at him, they're like, he has the true tradition. That's how they see Thomas. This is how they see Philip. This is how they see Mary Magdalene. That's why these are all the characters, and Judas even. These are the characters that are censored in the Gospel of John.
Yeah.
They all get a censor to their name added
Mm-hmm.
because all their Gospels were circulating at that time. And now we have all of them. That's pretty exciting, even though we don't have all of Mary's, but that's some exciting shit right there.
Mm-hmm. Um, that's really, I kind of think that the Gospel of John is kind of Simonian.
Kind of.
Well,
Here's
definitely
another
Simonian.
interesting thing. If you read the Acts of Pilate, a document known to have been around in the time of Justin Martyr, around 136 AD. Fact, it existed.
Mm-hmm.
And what it says is Pilate actually rebukes them when they say, "Oh, he cast out demons by Beelzebub," and he said, "No, this appears to be the work of Asclepius." And in the Gospel of John, Jesus heals at a place that's known to have been an Asclepion by archaeologists. It's
Mm-hmm.
only ever was an Asclepion. It was for healing. It was outside the walls of Jerusalem. That's where Jesus heals people in the Gospel of John.
Yeah.
So suck that. I mean, that's some stellar proof. Then you have anomalies like the Birth of Christ written by Africanus, right, where he talks about the genealogies and how, oh, you can harmonize the two genealogies, which is bullshit. He had to make that up.
Mm-hmm.
You can harmonize anything when you're a Catholic, you know? That's what their masters at. Their masters at bullshit. And so then what happens is you know, they're just doing all this crap where they've got to cover their tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the Gospels are a product of, is track covering from authentic stories that pass individually, most likely, you know?
Yeah. Basically, I mean, like, when the mythicists say that Jesus never existed, I mean, he never existed as far as the Gospels. I mean, yeah,
Right.
that's pretty fucking obvious.
Yeah.
Any any professor in religion will tell you that.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, it's not a huge revelation, but it gets a little more murky and complicated once you actually kind of go through all the lost gospels and the apocrypha and the Nag Hammadi shit.
What do you think about the belief that was very popular then that um, every church father before Lactantius, which is, you know, Lactantius is the first, he's living during the Diocletian persecution
Yeah.
up into the time of Constantine, and he's actually one of Constantine's advisors with Eusebius and Nicomedia, who's an Arian. Um, this guy basically, everyone before him and everyone before him basically taught this idea of millennialism, which is the idea that you read Revelation literally, which in the early Catholic Church, they read everything literally. They didn't believe in this allegorical thing. When Clement and Origen and people like that were talking about allegory, the church was like, oh, hell no. That's why they anathematized both of them later with the Gelasian decree in the I think it's 5th century, in the late 5th century, like 492 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, they anathematized them for that exact reason. In fact, they anathematized pretty much everybody that has these beliefs, except for Justin and Irenaeus, because they have stuff they could use from them. And they weren't really. Irenaeus wasn't really heavily read in the West at the time. His name's never even mentioned in the document. They probably didn't even know about him.
Mhm.
except for Jerome. Jerome, keep in mind, Jerome is not in the West. Even though he spent time in Rome, Jerome is an Eastern father. He's not a Western father. He comes from Caesarea, which is Palestine. That's where he spent most of his time. So he's really not a Western father as much as he's considered one. He's just not.
Mhm.
Um, but they believe in this millennialist thing. So if you read Revelation, literally it says Christ's going to come back. He's going to reign for 1,000 years in the flesh, and he's going to have a kingdom on earth. And then yet you have John in the Acts of Pilate where he says, "My kingdom's not of this world." But in the Synoptics, his kingdom's of the world. That's why
Right.
he gets hung for sedition in
Right.
Luke, because he tried to establish a worldly kingdom.
Yeah, it's very materialist. The Orthodox are obsessed with the material world. Anyway, it's all about the carnal resurrection with them. It's all about you know the virgin birth that with them. It's all about this and that. It's just all about this world, the hierarchy of the church. So
Yeah, right. The immortality is found in the ability for the church to go on in the material world, basically.
yeah, they've been successful for a while now, but not. But lately, their influence is kind of waning a little bit.
Right. And then you have things like Sunday worship and Easter and archbishops. These are amazing conversation pieces, because you have all this stuff about Eusebius, like, oh, Polycarp, even though he is already dead, if you actually read the Martyrdom of Polycarp, somehow was at Rome talking to Anicetus, the Pope, about Easter controversy, because they had a controversy whether they should have Easter or Passover. That controversy
Right.
never occurred until the 4th century. And it was a controversy in Roman law. It had nothing to do with the church. It had to do with the Romans, where
Mm-hmm.
Constantine was like, no, I want to have it this day. And then you have all this talk of the Lord's Day. None of the early documents say Lord's Day. It says Lord's life, which is
Hmm.
pretty weird. If you actually go back and read them, they make more sense that way. But Lord's Day is just this crock of crap thing they invented. The Roman Catholics, maybe after Trent or something, came up with it. Yeah, he's talking about the Lord's Day, dude, because that's what Sunday worship is.
The Epistles of
Lord's
the
Day
Apostles.
was was Lord's Day was Saturday. The seventh day was Saturday.
Yeah.
Right. That's Lord's
I
Day.
like.
It's the
I like
Passover. They teach
Jesus.
Mosaic law, Passover, keeping Passover. The thing was, Constantine's like, I want
Yeah.
that Jew holiday.
Yeah.
Even though the Jews are like loyal hound dogs to the empire, dude. They're the most loyal motherfuckers. They're like literally, like, if you listen to the comedian Paul Moody when he talks about black people, how they're so loyal to America. They built the White House, and they let it be called the White House in spite of them and shit, and they still stayed true to America, blah blah blah. Like, he makes jokes like that. That's the Jews in Rome. The Jews are like, oh, they persecute us. Oh, but we worship Caesar. If you read Suetonius, the Jews worshipped Caesar as a god. They had no problem with it.
Hmm.
So, and then you even have crazy ass stories from early on where they're talking about, uh, like in Persia, like the birth of Christ from Africanus. It talks about in Persia, like Juno and Minerva and some goddess Myria and all this shit. It's fucking crazy, dude. Like predicting the birth of Jesus.
Wow.
I'm telling you, I've come across the craziest ass sources, man. The more I read into this stuff, the more I'm like, damn, dude, I see stuff that mythicists haven't even ever heard of. If they have, they sure don't
Well,
make it a conversation piece, but I've never seen anything
right.
by them saying it.
Well, you might be the first one out of God knows how long to talk about this
And,
shit, huh?
and what about this? In 354 AD, um, they the Liberian catalog, the original of it before it's actually the Liberian catalog, but the chronography part in it that gives a list of the popes is dedicated
Mm-hmm.
to Saint Valentinus. And at the time, there was only one
Yeah.
Valentinus ever known in the church. There was no Valentine's Day. It wasn't there. They still celebrated Lupercalia, and once they made it illegal, which is like the early fifth, late fourth century, they make it illegal, and they switch it to Virgin Mary Day, which is the ancient form of Valentine's Day, which is where we celebrated chastity, not lovemaking. So Valentinus probably celebrated Lupercalia
Yeah.
as no
Interesting.
problem. There's no problem. It's a pagan holiday, fine. It was just a cultural thing. It had nothing to do with doctrine or belief or anything. It celebrated love. He saw no problem with that. He's like, all right, it supports celebrating love. That's fine. You guys can do that. We'll let you have one pagan festival for when you convert to the church. It was just like his way of saying, oh, here you go. He didn't care. It was a concession. Paul makes concessions in his letter. He goes, okay, I'll give you this concession. You can,
Right.
even though the gospel says you have to get married, or you have to not get married, or whatever it says, on marriage. Oh, you could do the opposite. You know, it's okay. You don't have to convert your husband to Christianity. All you wives out there, I'll make you that concession because you guys are doing good at everything else. So we'll relax a few of the rules. And Paul had no problem doing that. Valentinus does the same shit.
You remember Paul when he says it's okay to eat, sacrifice meat to idols. I mean, that's another, uh,
Oh yeah, there's another Simonian thing that
you
the
know,
gospel, or what I call the gospel of Cerinthus Revelation, um, it is staunchly against that. Oh no, you ate food sacrificed to idols. Polycarp's like, oh no, can't eat that food sacrificed to idols. The whole
hmm
Roman Catholic Church really honest. Don't eat that idol food. Well, Paul says go ahead. No, you're denying
yeah,
Christ. I mean, they take it pretty far. You can't. For First John, if you read that, there's only a few ways to deny Christ. If you read the early church fathers, oh my god, every other thing denies Christ. If you believe that there's going to be an earthly kingdom, or no, there's not going. If you believe there's going to be if you believe there's going to be an earthly kingdom, you're cursed. And there's people that said, oh, and that's in like the Acts of Pilate or something, things like that.
right.
So they have some pretty crazy crap going on between them, between the Gnostics and the Catholics.
Indeed, they did. I mean, you can see that, in the Gospel of Judas quite a bit, and you see that in what's the other one? The treaties of
Uh,
Seth. Yeah.
treaties on the resurrection, I think, and the authoritative teaching.
hmm
Those are some crazy documents too. But what's interesting too is the Acts of Paul and Thecla and the Acts of
hmm
Pilate have a character named Carinus, which is a Latin version of Cerinthus. And there was an emperor named Carinus around the time of Diocletian, near the time of Diocletian. In fact, with every Gnostic heretic or heresy arc, there's an emperor named after him. There's an emperor Marcian, which is close to
Yeah.
Marcion. There's an emperor Carinus. There's an emperor Valentinian.
Yeah. Then you have Ambrose
They,
Valentin.
yeah, right, and then exactly. So you have a lot of weird stuff like that. Uh, you
So
have
I guess some of them are
Origin.
secretly Gnostics, huh?
Well, this big problem erupted. Jerome and Augustine are writing letters to each other, and Jerome and Rufinus, they're like in this. One's east, one's whatever west or a little more west, and they're arguing with each other over Origin. Jerome's suddenly like, no, fuck Origin, because he's up for election as the Pope. They don't pick
hmm
him because they all knew he really liked Origin. They're like, they didn't buy his bullshit. And so they didn't elect him. They elect another guy. It's either Damasus or the Pope after him. I think it's Damasus or Siricius, one of them. And it's actually Siricius, I think, or maybe the Pope after him, that comes along and says, "Oh, Origin, all that shit's banned from Rome. Get that shit out of here." And then in maybe let's see, 3, 4 more popes. No, quite a few more popes. Um, by the time of Gelasius, they go, Origin is anathema. He's anathematized. He's not a saint. All his writings are condemned. His memory is damned. He actually had a
hmm
damnatio memory put on him, or memoriae, which is that damning your memory. That's actually what they did to Nero. The Roman Senate damned the memory of Nero, and so if you were damned, that's saying you were in hell. Divis or deified is to say that you were in heaven. This is actually a Roman concept. The Roman concept of going to heaven and hell based on man's opinion of you, based off your works and how they're received. That's the belief of the cult of the Roman emperor. And the word gospel and parousia and there's actually a bunch of words in there that are from the imperial cult. So Constantine adds all that, you know.
I was reading something the other day about Constantine that you remember his famous vision of the cross.
Right.
Apparently, it's
That
really
that
about
people try to say that wasn't reported till really late. That's actually reported. That's one of the earliest reports about it. That's very early. It's like near the. It's probably
well,
in the
apparently,
lifetime of
yeah.
Constantine. It was claimed.
Well, apparently he thought it was really about Helios, but a lot of the
Yeah.
other
Right.
church fathers, yeah, they try to convince him it was Christ. It
Right.
wasn't
He thought it was
Christ.
Sol Invictus.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Helios
that
is
was
Sol
earlier.
Invictus, the same god, and that's actually the god um, El Gabal, Lord of the Mountain. It's an old Syrian god
Hmm.
that was imported into the empire. And Diocletian believed in that god, worshipped the same god as Constantine. Aurelian worshipped him. Elagabalus
Hmm.
actually believed he was the mortal incarnation of him, much like Jesus comes off as believing he's the mortal incarnation of God and is God. Elagabalus believed he was God come in the flesh. That's his belief.
Hmm.
And he was the high priest of the Syrian religion. He died young, like Jesus died young. So there's parallels with him too. There's a lot of weird stuff out there. If people were really reading Origin instead of proof texting, they would shit themselves. They'd never go to church again. If that's why they damned Origin's memory and got rid of his writings, because if you read this shit, you would never go to church. You would just be like, wow, this whole thing is
Yeah,
bullshit.
yeah. Origin, he's very Platonist in his ideas.
Yeah,
Like you look at on the principles, it's all about him. He allegorizes everything, like Valentinus
yeah,
did. So, um,
right,
but
right. So
yeah,
yeah,
no,
the Gnostics were
they're
allegorists, and well, that actually, the
every
Gnostics they will use allegories, but I won't say they're allegorists. I won't say they're typologists either. I think that's more
yeah. I
orthodox.
don't.
I don't think they're allegorizing. I think they're actually using what they call isosophy. And isosophy is a way of decrypting text. So you can decrypt the text based on the numerology of it, or what? Well, not numerology, but based on the numerical value of it. And you take the numerical values and you come up with what their equivalent statements are, which is what they still do in Hebrew school to this day for Jews, And that's why there's passages like Ephesians 4, I think it was, and Genesis 3 and Revelation 12. They all say the same exact thing if you do isosophy. They all give the list of
Hmm.
the aeons. They give out all the aeons. So
Marcus
it's
Magician
pretty
does it.
crazy. Right. No, but he doesn't do it right. He doesn't do it right. What he's doing is gematria. That's different. One's a
Hmm.
Greek thing and one's a Hebrew thing. I don't know. They're kind of weird, but
Well, like
I
Marcus
couldn't really
Magician
go into
does
the
it.
details on that right now because I don't remember it. But
Yeah.
there's a difference between isosophy and gematria, and Marcus is using one, and Valentinus is using a completely different thing.
Yeah, the Gnostics they weren't exactly allegorists, but
Right.
they definitely use allegory though. But
Right. Oh
I don't
yeah.
think they but yeah, I don't think they saw their own ideas and myths as just purely
Right. I
fantasy.
think they use allegory, but they don't.
Yeah,
They allegorize doctrine. They don't allegorize the New Testament.
yeah. I
Maybe in
mean, a lot of the
Jesus'
church
teachings they
fathers.
might, but that's because they see Jesus as speaking in code and he means certain things, and so they're like more definitive in reality. They're definitive of the words. So yeah, they're not heavy allegorizers, but Origen is a very heavy allegorizer, and when you allegorize the whole New Testament, it just comes out being a crock of shit. It's worse than reading it literally. That's why they didn't like him, and
Yeah.
he is an idiot because he does all that, and it's like, why do you need to allegorize everything? And it just comes out making no
Yeah.
sense. Everything comes out with like, I don't know. It's not, how they have cataphatic, apophatic theology, whatever. There's also inverted hermeneutics. So which is
Hmm.
like if you took those theologies are opposed to each other, well, inverted hermeneutics is the opposite of the accepted hermeneutic. So say that literalism is the accepted hermeneutic. Well, if you do allegory, that's the you know the inverted hermeneutic. And people will say, oh, the Gnostics use inverted hermeneutics. No, they don't. They define words differently. They're never accused of using inverted hermeneutics. They're accused of not understanding hermeneutics, I think. So
I see that all the time. People say that they read things invertedly, or
yeah, no, yeah,
they change
definitely not. It
meaning
looks that way
meaning
though.
of
It
these.
definitely does at first
Yeah,
glance.
yeah. If you're not familiar with the how they read stuff, but not
Right.
when you actually. I mean, when you actually read the source text like
Well,
Genesis.
they're coming from a list of prepositions, and one of the prepositions is that the soul and the flesh are completely of a different substance, even when they're
Yeah.
even look like even say like this, right? You got a box, and you take some coins, and you put them in the box, right? And then you close it.
Hmm.
Well, surely you don't think they became the box. So they're doing this from a
Right.
Platonic reasoning. They're saying there's parts of the whole, just like Aristotle and Plato would say. And so they think like Platonists. If you don't think like a Platonist, you can't understand how the soul and the flesh could be separate. Well, the pennies are the soul, and the flesh is the case here, even though this should be the soul. It's backwards,
I love
right?
that scarab.
But yeah, so this is the flesh, and the pennies are the soul. So anytime the penny could be taken out, and when the penny's taken out, even though it's not a material object, it's made of light, which
Hmm.
could be material, but it's light. It's looser. It's the loosest possible matter we know of than if it's matter, and it's that. Look at that, all shiny. You like that, huh?
Right.
So
Special effect.
there's Helios, and so yeah, it's easy because I got the light right there. LEDs work
Yeah.
really good. So oh look, even if watch if I put it right there, it's a Jesus wafer, and it's not generic brand, baby. This right here would be the
Makes it
soul.
light.
Well, the soul could leave this shit anytime.
Right.
So they're not inseparably bound. In the Orthodox position, they're not inseparably bound necessarily. It depends on who you're talking to, whether it's a Protestant, Eastern Orthodox, or Roman Catholic. The Orthodox strand of Christianity, um, it's different for each faction within that strand, or that with that historical makeup. Um, or the council, anyone that broke off, anyone that was there from the councils that broke off after, they're all Catholic, and they're not Roman Catholic, but they're Catholic. So the thing is that with like with the Protestants, or like these people that write the Epistle of the Apostles, which is the early
Hmm.
papacy most likely. I mean, these people probably believe, you know, the soul does separate from the body, just like the early Talmudic Jews are believing this. They believe the soul separates from the body, but only for 3 days, and it comes back into the body.
Yeah.
And then it leaves the body again, and it goes around for 365 days doing this, and that, some weird thing like that. They could have believed that. They could have just believed, hey, you go to soul sleep like Luther, or they could have believed that the Roman Catholic view. Like you go up there, you're in heaven until you wait the judgment. They put you back in your body, and then you live 1,000 years on Earth, the literalists, and then you do this and that. I mean, they have all kinds of schemes in the New Testament alone, or even in the whole Bible. There's probably like four different schemes on how the whole resurrection thing is supposed to work.
Hmm.
You throw in a general resurrection, you change everything. Throw in soul sleep, you change everything.
Yeah.
The Gnostics don't believe in carnal resurrection. In other words, there's no soul sleep for a Gnostic. There's no there's no general resurrection. It's just boom, your soul leaves your body, unites with your spirit, gets clothed in the spirit. The spirit becomes its new flesh, which is pure light as well.
Well, I mean, if you think about
Because
it,
the soul
what
is
happens
essentially
when?
just energy. It's electricity.
Yeah. Well, think about when a person actually dies. What happens? A source of
They're
immaterial energy leaves the body, and the
right. That's why the
body
heart can be
decomposes.
defibrillated.
Yeah.
That's why it can be
So,
shocked back into working.
so there's a separation of two substances that were.
The Hindus, the ancient in the Bhagavad Gita talks about how they had it's like 1/24,000th or 10,000 or some weird thing, the size of the pinpoint of the tiniest needle. That's how big this spark of energy is that's lodged in the heart.
Right.
That's taught. in the Bhagavad Gita. That's taught in Hinduism all the way
Mhm.
back to the beginning of the Indus Valley culture.
Mhm.
That's some ancient shit right there. That's Gnosticism.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, that's like the most Gnostic thing in the Bhagavad Gita. So there are divine
Agreed.
sparks, and that's what they there's no make no mistake that that's why they call them sparks, because they knew that they were sparks of electricity. They knew that. They wouldn't have called it a spark if they didn't know that. You know,
Mhm.
that's pretty literal. And they mean it literally. They don't mean it allegorically. Well, see, when it comes to the Orthodox, they're the ones that use the symbolic language, and they only use it right here. They use symbolic language, and especially the Roman Catholics, they use symbolic language when it'll best suit them. So when they say spark, they mean your energy. Well, what substance is energy? Oh, it's not. It's just a figurative word. It's energy. Like your ability to do things. They don't look at it as substantial. For us, it's substantial.
Mhm.
For them, they just don't hold that view. And a lot of people that probably just flew over the head right now, so we should probably just skip to another thing. But it's
Well,
it's
well,
substantial.
I want to touch. Yeah, well, I want to touch on that a little bit more, even though it might, I don't know, confuse people. But in the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about the three gunas, right?
Hmm.
And then, of course, there's sattva, there's raja, and then I forget the other one. But
Right, right.
but I know, but it corresponds to the three natures of the Valentinians, and of course Paul.
I wonder if I still have the Bhagavad. Probably.
It's somewhere in my room.
I didn't read it
But
again. It's been a long fucking time.
I have so many goddamn books. It's so
Oh.
funny.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's like half the time I'm so lazy I can't even dig through my books. Oh, there it is. It's up there. Yep, I got it. What do you know? Oh, and they
Well,
believe in salvation
yeah,
by works. Salvation by works in the early church. They all believe that. Eternal punishment in hell. They all believe that. Literal interpretation. Um,
yeah. Talk about that. Well, now, how literalist were all the church fathers? Were they all
literal.
literalists,
Like
or?
when they read that Christ is going to reign on earth for 1,000 years, or however it phrases it,
Mhm.
they literally it means exactly what it says when it says that there's a dragon and this lady rides the dragon. They take that symbolically, not allegorically. Allegory is not the same as symbolism. It's not exactly the
Yeah.
same. It's close. It's not the same. They take it as like, oh, that's just a way of saying, oh, the dragon is this and this is that. We can equate it to this and equate it to that.
Right.
It's close to allegory, but allegory has like a story. It has a point, like some kind of
Yeah.
moral lesson. Well,
It's more of a
symbolism
Trinitarian
doesn't
way of
have
saying.
symbolism doesn't have a lesson in it. It's just a story. Story with no lesson.
Right.
An antichrist is going to come and get overthrown, and a dragon does this and that. What does that even mean? What does that teach me? Nothing. It just teaches you to be paranoid and wait for dragons to fucking come kill you and wait for Obama to be the Antichrist. It just teaches paranoia. That's how you can tell it comes from the mind of a nutcase like Cerinthus. Because he's just a paranoid fucking. He's like a spaz, dude. Marcion is like a tyrannical baby who wants to have his way, and the other one, Cerinthus, he's just like this egomaniacal, lying scumbag, basically. And everyone that followed him, they say
Sure.
what did Irenaeus say? Heretics, or maybe it was Tertullian. Heretics disavow their name. They choose to disavow it. So they choose to not be called by or not be even related to. So Marcus was like, "Fuck Valentinus." That's what Marcus did. Marcus broke off. He said,
Mhm.
"Marcus, this all came from me, bro. Forget Valentinus." And that's what Irenaeus and Justin do to Cerinthus,
Hmm.
basically. And then Irenaeus goes, "Oh, I follow Justin. I don't follow Cerinthus because now we have the virgin birth. We added on a few things." They did. They basically take Cerinthus and add some stuff on. It's actually Theodosius, an early heretic, who adds the virgin birth on before Justin Martyr came along. He already had come
Yeah.
up with the virgin
Yeah.
birth like 100 AD.
Yeah. He's a Valentinian.
And you know, it's funny if you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is the oldest copy of Isaiah, and it's Aramaic, and it's the one that Jesus and anybody else in that time period would have had, you know, presuming they existed. Uh, they would have had it, and they would have read that it doesn't say Betula, it reads Alma, and Alma means someone who isn't married. So they couldn't have had sex yet. That's how they're a virgin. It implies that they're a virgin, but it doesn't imply that they'd stay a virgin afterwards, or it doesn't imply that they could get pregnant by any other means than a man. A virgin can't get pregnant by God. In the Old Testament, there's no case of a virgin birth. What happens is he makes it so that her womb can receive seed again. She can actually naturally give birth. She's not barren anymore. That's the miracle
Mm-hmm.
God performs. So how can you say you believe in Yahweh? This is the God we believe in, but you believe in a virgin birth. You look like a moron because Yahweh doesn't do that. Yahweh
Right.
doesn't play that game. And the virgin birth is just something that's stolen from the Gnostics, where they said he was born from the virginal spirit. If you read all the
Yeah, the
Gnostic
self
texts, in
spirit
all of
of
them.
Aeon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the
And
self
here's the
spirit of
difference
Aeon.
between Gnostics and Catholics. Gnostics believe in monogenes, only begotten. Catholics believe in first begotten because they believe they're adoptionists.
Right.
So they believe that everyone gets adopted in. You know, it's total
Mm-hmm.
bullshit. With a Gnostic, you're either it or you're not. You know,
Right.
and so these guys get adopted in. They go, well, that's the second born son, and that's why he said, "Today I've begotten you," because every time God gives birth, He gives birth by adopting. Because he can't really give birth to flesh for some reason, even though supposedly he's a guy floating in the clouds. Because in the early church, anthropomorphism is the norm. They all believe God was a man, even though Isaiah said God's not a man.
I love
They
Isaiah.
essentially believe God's a man. They describe him like a man, and he's Jesus. And Jesus flew up into the clouds. He ascended into the clouds. If you read Luke, he
Mm-hmm.
ascended in the flesh into the clouds. That's what it says, into the sky. And if you, but oh, we can't read it literal there. Not anymore. Because we don't want to show, we don't want anyone to know how ridiculous Roman Catholic belief really is. So we can't read that part anymore. We've chosen to, we don't teach that part, but that's really what we believe. I know it sounds crazy, but it's not. But I don't want to explain it because you're an idiot. So read this. They always have a segue out of everything. They can't make a real argument. Like they have to make partial quotes. Oh no, didn't Irenaeus said that if you quote things partially, you're a heretic? That's what he does. He does 3 books full of it before he gives you a full quote. You know, the guy's just like, oh yeah, don't quote mine. Oops, I'm doing it. Don't do it because only I can do it. It's the 3 monkeys that hear no
So,
evil, see no evil, speak no evil.
so what are you trying to say here, James? That Roman Catholic belief is a bunch of malarkey? Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, malarkey is a nice word. Very friendly. It's total bullcrap. But yeah, I get emails all the time from people that they won't admit whether they're Eastern Orthodox or Catholic. I'll ask them straight up. They avoid the question. I go, man, you're like Jesus in the Gospel of John before the Jews. Every time he gets asked a question, he's like, oh, trail off. Let's get off the subject. They have short attention spans like everyone else that reads this, you know. And so they can get away with this shit, you know. They rely on the short attention span and the poor critical thinking faculties of the ignorant masses.
You know what I find funny is that scholars might say, oh, well, Tertullian thought that the Gnostics were, they set themselves apart from apostolic teaching. No shit, Sherlock. They hated the apostles. I mean,
Right. They only believed
besides
in Paul
Paul.
and Thomas and Philip, but most of the
Yeah,
apostles
but
they don't like.
not at all. I mean, the
Right. And they
apostles
consider
basically
Mary an
proclaimed.
apostle, which the Eastern Orthodox ripped that off and said, "Oh, she's the 13th apostle." No, she's like the
Yeah.
fourth or fifth apostle because there weren't that many. But Paul is the
Her name's Scott.
apostle. Paul is
Right.
the
But
apostle. Paul is for the Gnostic. Essentially, Thomas and all them. They didn't really found churches. They couldn't really found a church. They were just evangelists.
mhm.
All the apostles, they don't call them apostles. Those are evangelists because the truth is they weren't apostles. They were disciples of Jesus. out of the disciples of Jesus, and they later try to make apostle and disciple the same word. You can't call the 12 apostles the 12 apostles because that's an orthodox opinion. If you're a Gnostic, they're the 12 disciples. So the only apostle is Paul. Paul's the apostle. The evangelists evangelized. They came to Paul. Paul founded a church based on how they had evangelized.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened. And James and Paul are in line with each other. James, Paul, and Mary and James are related. He's not related to Jesus. James the Just is no relation to Jesus, essentially. He could be, they might call him brother figuratively, but he's related to Mary. He's like her brother-in-law. And that's how he's related to Jesus. In reality, he's Jesus' brother-in-law because Mary is
Isn't that what
Jesus'
Magdalene?
wife. I don't think Eisenman says that. It sounds like something a little way too, that, man, if I would have read that by Eisenman, I'd have a way different opinion on him. But,
Well, I mean, I haven't really read them, so I don't know. I mean, that's what I've
yeah,
heard, but
no, yeah,
man,
I've
what's the
never
official
heard that with
opinion?
him. I've read him and I've never seen that. But, I don't remember seeing it, but it might be there. It's a long book. But, yeah, Mary is the wife of Jesus, and James the Just is married into the family. And,
Mm-hmm.
essentially him and Paul essentially run the church in the early church. They
Yeah.
basically ran everything. James was a very Gnostic figure. That's why they had to jack him and make up a bunch of stories about him. I mean, he's not someone that figures into the New Testament, really, like at all.
Yeah.
He's a very esoteric figure.
Yeah, we see him a lot in the Nag
Mm.
Hammadi library, though. We see him in
But in the Nag Hammadi library, that's where I got the idea that he's Jesus' brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And it talks about who his dad is. It's not Zebedee. Zebedee's not his
Mm-hmm.
father. But that's definitely in the Nag Hammadi library. It's in fact, I'll pull it out. It's in the Apocalypse of James, or the Apocalypse of James, one of them.
Yeah, I think I have it in front of me too. Let me see. I have my copy. Let's see.
It's pretty interesting. Let's see, it's the second Apocalypse. It says this is the discourse that James had just spoke in Jerusalem, which Miriam, which is Mary Magdalene, 270.
Oh.
One of the priests wrote. In other words, in the early Gnostic church, and Clement of Alexandria attests to this, Clement and Valentinus and other people, Clement of Alexandria had female priests in his church. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Mary was actually a priest or a disciple, basically, but a priest is below an apostle, so she's basically an evangelist. And it says they wrote this. He had told it to Theuda. Theuda is the one who inherits the church from Paul. He's basically the bishop of the Gentiles before Valentinus and before Ptolemy. And that's
Yeah.
the real bishop of the Gentiles. Marcion is like this figure that's trying to jack the Gentile church from Valentinus. I think that's what I think. And basically, maybe he was using that title to do that. I don't know. That's another thing I got to figure out. But um, it says that he's the father of the just one since he was a relative of his. So Mary is somehow in here related to James. Maybe that's how Jesus is the brother James, brother-in-law. Because when you married in, they called everyone brother, and so Theudas is actually the father of James. Yet again, why would Paul leave his church to Theudas if he did not respect James? Clearly, a very deep respect for James. James doesn't teach this salvation by works um, necessarily. It says he shall be judged with the unrighteous, but the problem is you can interpret it different ways. It could, what the author means by it could be entirely different than what the Orthodox mean by it. So we say he shall be judged with the unrighteous, but see if you actually isolate it. When you actually read it, it says, "Now again I am rich in gnosis, and I have a unique understanding, which was produced only from above," and then it's blank for a while. "That which was revealed to me was hidden from everyone, shall only be revealed through him. These two who see I something something, They have already proclaimed through these words, he shall be judged with the unrighteous. He who lived without blasphemy died by means of blasphemy. He who was cast out, they. So if you could isolate that and say he shall be judged with the unrighteous. Clearly, the second apocalypse of James says that. But if we just isolate that passage, like Roman Catholics love to do, that's why they won't quote a full passage, like Irenaeus bitched about, is because now we can say they believe in the final judgment. James clearly believed in the final judgment because it says it right here. No, it's saying that Jesus was judged with the unrighteous at the crucifixion. See how easy it is to do that? And Irenaeus goes on and on about, look, I could read Homer like this, and I could come up with a totally different story. Well, this is how Roman Catholics read. They isolate a passage like that, and they say, okay, well, clearly it's talking about James. It says something judgment. Okay, James believed in final judgment, so clearly, he doesn't believe in what Paul believes, and Dudas believes, and Valentinus believes.
Yeah,
That's what they try to do.
Yeah, they don't look at the context, huh?
Well, and since the Nag Hammadi library has no authority among Catholics of any way, you can't use it in debate with it.
No.
It's not ancient. It's not ancient. As if anything they have is more ancient than the 4th century. It's not in the form it's in. In fact, even Eusebius, the earliest copy dates to 462 AD. The earliest copy of Irenaeus dates to about 380 AD when Jerome was in Rome. He was a candidate for Pope, kind of like this figure Marcion that he hates so much, and he got shot down because he was a pro-Origen,
Yeah, a lot of Catholic beliefs come from Origen and.
Like, what about original sin? It's in the Tripartite Tractate.
Yep.
Explicitly, it's in the Gospel of John. Caiaphas teaches it. It's explicit as fuck. And they'll come out and like these Eastern Orthodox, they go, well, we're not cool with the Roman Catholics because they believe that you inherit the guilt of Adam's sin. Augustine never teaches that. He says you inherit the condition of Adam's sin, which is the punishment, which is death, which is a physical death. That's the punishment for the sin. All humanity was put under a curse. Now, that's not the same thing as inheriting guilt. You're not inheriting, you can't inherit guilt. You're punished for his guilt. Dude, vicariously, Adam lives through you. The ancient belief in the church and among the Jews is that we were all alive. And this is going to sound here's another fucking crazy thing that might blow you away. The belief is that all of humanity was inside Adam. That's why the whole pleroma had to be in Jesus, the fullness of the Godhead. So all of humanity was in Adam at the beginning, in his sperm. All of humanity. You were in Adam's nutsack at the beginning of time. That is the ancient Jewish belief. That is the early Roman Catholic belief. That's the early belief of a majority of anything Judeo-Christian. They believe that everyone started in Adam's nutsack. Everyone that will ever come comes from Adam's nutsack. Everybody. Literally, we were all there. Because how many sperm compete for the goal? This is pretty logical, actually, if you think about it. Every time you ejaculate, how much sperm is actually flying out? They say it's like 158,000 sperms. They come up with wild numbers. Well, damn, okay, it makes sense. If he nutted like 7 times, shit, you'd have the whole human race. If they all made it, if they were all champion swimmers, so it's pretty logical. It's logical to say all of humanity was Adam's nutsack. It probably was. I don't have a problem with it. It's creepy, it's weird, but there you go. You'll never hear that from people because they don't want to point that stuff out. They're like, no, that's not true. That doesn't exist, man. Read the ancient sources and you'll crap yourself. Read Josephus, for God's sake. Read Josephus. Read Suetonius. Read it. Read it. Don't quote mine it. Don't worry about the golden passage. Forget all that testimonium Flavianum shit. Read Josephus. Read about what the Pharisees, Sadducees, and Essenes believe. You'll shit yourself. There's crazy stuff out there, man. That's why I love the Apocrypha, man. And I'm not talking the watered down Apocrypha that like Apocryphile and people on YouTube talk about. No, that's not Apocrypha. Those are official books of the Catholic Church that are recommended for reading. They're not apocryphal. Right. Protestants just call it that because they kind of have Catholic guilt, you know.
Right.
They don't want to admit that
We
they
have
used to
one
believe in all that shit.
yeah.
Strange. And
Yeah, I love it.
just
I like the epistle of the apostles, how they view Jesus is very demiurgical, right? How they call him the
oh yeah,
Lord
like
and
in what was it, chapter
yeah,
4 or 3 or something?
yeah. Let me read
What
that. I
else
think
they
it's
have in that document? Because you have the long one. The one I have in front of me, the only one I have in print is from Lost Scriptures by Bart Ehrman. He only gives segments of it because
yeah,
it's pretty long. It's like 50 something chapters. So there's a lot of it I haven't read. I remember coming across it online and going, "Wow, there's that many more chapters. I got to get into this," and I forgot about it till today.
yeah. It goes this know we that our Lord and Redeemer Jesus Christ is God, the Son of God, who is Son of God, the Lord of the whole world, the Maker and Creator of it, who is named by all names and high above all powers, Lord of Lord, King of Kings, ruler of rulers, the Heavenly One that sitteth above the cherubim and the seraphim at the right hand of the Lord, the throne of the Father, who by his word made the heavens and formed the earth, and then who is above blah 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 blah
Yeah,
blah blah blah.
it's so
Yeah.
creedal. What else do they have in there? How about this? What about chapter? Because I haven't even got to go through it. I want to look at it. But what about that was chapter 3, right? What about chapter 4?
Yeah. Okay, it says, "This did our Lord Jesus Christ, who was sent by Joseph and mother his, I mean, and Mary his mother, to be taught. And when he that taught him said unto him, Say Alpha, then answered he,
Oh yeah, there's the Alpha Omega story
yeah,
from the
yeah, there you
Infancy
go.
Gospel of Thomas.
Tell
This is actually earlier than the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. The Infancy Gospel of Thomas pops up later, so this is proof that this probably existed before the
yeah,
Gospel of Luke, before Luke was even
yeah, it's probably
finalized. This document was in front of them. You know?
it says, Tell thou me that what is better, with the little marks. It says probably tell thou me first what is better,
Yeah,
the
beta.
The Marcosian story quoted by Irenaeus. See above. Gospel of
Oh
Thomas.
yeah,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's all there.
What about chapter 5? What's in there?
Let's see. Thereafter was there a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and they bade him with his mother and his brother, and he changed water into wine. There, Gospel of John. He raised the dead. He caused the lame to walk. Him whose hand was withered, he caused to stretch it out. And the woman which had suffered an issue of blood 12 years touched the hem of his garment and was healed in the same hour. Yeah, I mean these are all in the other Gospels, but they just kind of repeat the same ideas. Um, like choice passages from the Gospels.
What about number
The
19?
miracles. Uh, it says, "And this preach ye also, and teach them that believe on me, and preach the kingdom of heaven of my Father, and how my Father hath given me the power, that ye may bring near the children of my heavenly Father. Preach ye, and ye shall obtain faith, that ye may be they for whom it is ordained that they shall bring his children unto heaven." I hate how it reads. Just whoever wrote this, oh God,
Yeah.
it's terrible. Or who
Well,
translated it too.
it's an old translation actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It sucks, but I hate it. But anyway, let's see. What
What
else?
happens when you got to read this crap? It takes a long time to read.
Yeah, it's just like I hate it. I hate
But
the old
okay,
translation.
read chapter 1 for the listeners because they haven't seen this, but
Okay,
read
this is
chapter
pretty good.
1. It's pretty interesting.
All right. The book which Jesus Christ revealed unto his disciples, and how that Jesus Christ revealed the book for the company college of the apostles, the disciples of Jesus Christ, even the book which is all for all men. Simon and Cerinthus, the false apostles, concerning whom it is
That is
written.
a very bad translation. That is a bad translation. Here's what it actually says.
Yeah,
What Jesus Christ
yeah,
revealed to his disciples as a letter, and how Jesus Christ revealed the letter of the council of the apostles. In other words, this is a synodical statement by the apostles that was revealed to them by Jesus as a letter. that came down from heaven, from Jesus, when he resurrected. Okay, not when he resurrected, but when he appeared after the resurrection. So then it says the disciples of Jesus Christ to the Catholics. That's actually what it says. That's where it says to all men. That's actually a liberal translation of it, made by a Protestant. You're reading a Protestant translation, but it actually says Catholicos. And
Really?
it says, which was written because of the false apostles Simon and Cerinthus, by that Simon Magus, that no one should follow them, for them is deceit with which they kill people, that you may be established and not waver, not be shaken, and not turn away from the word of the gospel that you have heard.
Mm-hmm.
That you've heard.
Mm-hmm.
Not what you've written, what the church says. If you didn't hear it from us, it's not the gospel. They didn't read. The early Catholic Church, it's always been a practice of the Catholic Church not to read Scripture except for the bishops. Only they were allowed to read it. With Gnostics, anybody could read it. That's the difference. That's what the Protestants stole from the Gnostics. Like, oh, we can all read now.
Right.
Except with the Gnostics, they were all trained at how to read it. They were all educated on it. And so they didn't have this weird hierarchical idea of like, oh, some people. And then that's what's funny about the Catholics. They believe that, but yet that's exactly what they accuse the Gnostics of. Gnostics are elitist. You're elitist. And you think only certain people are going to heaven. That's not the same thing as believing that you only believe certain people are going to heaven too. What the fuck is your point? It's not the same thing as believing in three natures.
Well, they're the ones that talk. I mean, shit. I mean,
yeah, they're elitists.
Are the most elitist organization on the face of the fucking planet.
They're probably not as elitist as the Eastern Orthodox. The Eastern Orthodox were so elitist that they said, fuck Rome, you're not in charge anymore. We're in charge. That's how elitist they are. They're fucking elitist as shit. And they gotta own their own churches. And they have to have massive churches, own them. All this shit. Like, the bishops are all pimps, dude. They're all pimps and ballers selling Russian prostitutes or something, dude. They make so much money. I mean, there's gotta be something going on. I don't know what they're doing, but they generate capital, man. And they can afford these big-ass churches. That's ridiculous, dude.
Well, I think
they're doing magic acts or something.
They're into more than just Russian prostitutes, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, they're into something. Trafficking blow or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, watch. Next thing you know, I'm going to hit up. You're slandering people. No, I'm not, because I never said they are doing this. I'm like, I wonder what they're doing. Like, they've got to be doing something that makes money. Those are the big money makers, especially in Russia. Come on. And then you got all these heretical Eastern Orthodox groups out here, like, oh, ROCOR and Russian Orthodox Church outside of America, OCA, the Orthodox Church of America. These are all heretical groups that broke off from the Russian Orthodox Church and came up with their own theologies and all this crap. And they say they're Orthodox, yet the Orthodox are totally accept Augustine as blessed. They don't have any problem with any of that, and they don't flip out over original sin. They believe in hell. Pretty much, they're like Roman Catholics in so many ways. They just don't believe in the Pope.
Wow.
It's like if Protestants would have stuck to their Catholic beliefs, that's Eastern Orthodoxy. Really, like legit Eastern Orthodoxy is not very different from Roman Catholicism doctrinally. It's not way off. There's only a couple major doctrines that are different, and hell is not one of them. Hell's not even close to being one of them. So these guys saying, "Oh, there's no hell," they're just ripping off Gnostics,
Mm-hmm.
Early church, it's emphatically the way they determine what was legit doctrine in the early church and at Nicaea and stuff like that is they took every writing they could find by people that at one time were approved by the church, and it had to be a writing from when they were approved by the church. And they look at it, and all the writers that were approved by the church actually taught eternal punishment in a lake of fire or hell or whatever. They all taught it. So that was one thing that was accepted because everybody taught it. It's a Catholic doctrine if everyone taught it.
Yeah, that's what.
You take a few doctrines, a few doctrines. If only one person taught it, they disregard it. For the Trinity, they accepted it because Valentinus was accepted by the church at one time, and so they said, well, he taught it, Tertullian taught it, we'll keep it. Athanasius likes it, we're going to keep it because there's enough backing to it. If it has enough backing, it gets accepted. It can still become a Catholic doctrine. But it's
Yeah, well,
automatically Catholic if the whole church accepts it. It wasn't even up for debate. The church believed in hell. I mean, isn't it in the Nicene Creed? These people claim they follow the Nicene Creed. I'm pretty sure the Nicene Creed talks about hell.
it does.
Yeah, pretty sure it talks about eternal punishment. Watch, pull it up.
Let's see.
I
That
bet you it talks
Nicene
about. I'm pretty damn sure it talks about eternal punishment for the wicked and the damned or something. We believe in the judgment.
let's see.
How can you have a final judgment without hell? Doesn't make any sense. Where's what everyone's? I'm gonna judge you all equally. You're all going to heaven.
Hmm.
Judgment implies that you can get a negative or positive judgment.
All right, here's the.
So you can't have a final judgment and a general resurrection if you don't have hell. This doesn't work. That's those are what you call package doctrines. Basically, they're all like they have to come together. You can't have one without the other.
Well, apparently there's two translations I'm looking at, so I'm just going to read the first one that just pops up on my screen. Let's see. It says.
Find the part where it talks about eternal punishment. Telling you, these so-called OCA guys, they don't follow the doctrine of the Nicene Creed at all.
Yeah, it says. 1 second.
All they do is they believe in what the bishops believe in public, and
Yeah.
in private they can believe whatever they want.
All it says is he will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and his kingdom will
To
have
judge the living and the dead, meaning some
yeah.
go to hell, some go to heaven. The doctrine of hell is in the Nicene Creed. That's right there.
Yep.
They can't mean anything else. What's the punishment? There has to be a punishment or reward when you judge someone, or a punishment and it's not a reward, but there's a punishment for one. Heaven's not a reward. Heaven's a pardon. So you have a pardon and you have the punishment. If you go to heaven, oh great, you're fine. You're not getting really rewarded, but you're not going to hell.
Right.
Because their idea of heaven, it's not much better than here. The only difference is you don't have any genitals. So it's kind of worse than here. You don't get to have sex.
Right.
You know, that's Justin's view of it. And Justin's the first one to come up with hell. That's his idea that he takes from Greek philosophy. He actually steals it from Plato.
Mm-hmm.
Or Socrates, actually, not Plato, but Plato doesn't believe in that. Socrates does.
Yeah, he believes in a lot of things. Socrates is one interesting guy.
Yeah, and he goes through phases, though. You can't just read Socrates and say, oh, he believed all that when he died. Like, some of the stuff he believed at one time, some of the stuff he didn't believe anymore. He changes his views. A lot, actually. That's because some of those things aren't... A lot of Plato's works might not even be by Plato. They could be by students of his or students of Socrates'. You know, Xenophon, who's not very popular, he wrote about... He was one of Plato's students. He writes about Socrates. Or he's one of Socrates' students, and he writes about him. He's a fellow student with Plato. And what he went to war, though. He was a general or army commander, and he fought the Persians. And if you read the Anabasis of Cyrus by Xenophon, you actually find that they believe that Zeus was the savior, and they had to pray to Zeus, and they had to do all this stuff. And you find language very reminiscent of Christianity. Like it smacks. I mean,
Yeah.
it just makes Jesus look like Zeus worship.
Zeus is a redeemer. Zeus is this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like even
the story about Mary being overcome by the Holy Spirit is the story of Danae being overcome by Zeus when he golden showered on her, which is a pretty nasty sexual thing that we read it like, oh, it's a golden shower, golden's good. They meant it the way we mean it now. He urinated on her.
Was called the great Hercules.
But he did.
The great power. Yeah, Hercules is called the great power of Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
And guess who Simon Magus?
Oh, and also Hercules. It's the reason some of the early church believed in this idea that the Earth's on one flat plane rather than on two planes. You know, or multiple planes.
Yeah.
They just believe that it's on a single plane, and that's why they call it the flat Earth theory. You know, even though it doesn't mean flat, it means a flat plane. So
Right.
what they're saying is the Earth is a disk rather than a sphere. And so if you believe in that, that's because you believe Atlas is holding up the world.
Right.
Because the Titans are buried underneath the world and they're carrying it. So Atlas is carrying the world. That's why Atlas shrugged. See, now we show it
Mhm.
with the globe. Back then they would just show them with a fucking like Tartarus looking rock thing. And the deeper down you go Tartarus, that's where all the dead people are.
Right. And Tartarus appears a lot in the New Testament and Nagamani Library.
Yeah.
Um, it's the lowest point of hell, or Hades, I
Right.
should say.
Tartarus appears in Peter's letters as well
Hmm.
in the New Testament. And most of the writings that deal with Tartarus when it comes to Christianity and Gnosticism date somewhere into the mid 3rd century. Or maybe 235 AD. That's when it all starts
Yeah.
popping up is right there under Origin.
Yeah. Mhm. And you see that really interesting enough in the on the origin of the world too, where the snake lion god is cast at Tartarus by some fire angel
Right.
creature, like the Titans were for the Olympians.
But I mean,
You know,
if anyone watching thinks this stuff is crazy, read more. Hit me up for a source. I'll give you some crazy sources. I'll tell you. I'll
yeah.
tell you the manuscript tradition if I have to. I can get all that
Everything we
information
talk,
usually.
yeah, everything we talk about in our
Yeah,
conversations,
I
we
can
don't
back up
make it
all of
all.
it legit.
Yeah, we don't make it up at all. So
Yeah,
we could all cite it easily.
yeah, all of it. You gotta give me time
Everything
though.
we're,
I can cite it all because
yeah.
it's so much shit to go through. But yeah, I've been reading. This guy is sending me some stuff. He's a mythicist. He's sending me some stuff on Livy and Plutarch and all this stuff. And he was the first mythicist I came across that was on YouTube that actually he backed up his claims. They were well cited. He sent me everything. I read through it. I was like, oh, he's got some points there. He might have some points. So I was reading through it. I gotta show you it later. But
Oh,
it's
that's a
interesting.
good one.
He was actually a pretty fucking cool guy actually. So
Oh, okay. This is like the our first Gnostic circle jerk that we haven't really laughed that much. It's just more, just kind of like
yeah, this is an agnostic
comical
circle
and
jerk
fun.
then.
Yeah, I don't think it's really. We should just call it that. Maybe we should just call it something
We'll
else.
call it an Urkel jerk.
But Urkel jerk. I miss Brad, dude. I want
An
Brad
Urkel
to
circ?
be in our next
Tell him Urkel
episode.
circ?
Or because yeah, Brad he likes to liven things up with his little jokes. And I
His
kind of
little
feel bad. I have
his little pesky
jerk.
comments.
Well, yeah, they
He's a
make me want
pesky
to crack the
Gnostic.
fuck up. Yeah, he's a pesky Gnostic.
Gotta watch out for pesky Gnostics. I already know what I'm gonna
Yeah.
get. 1,800 comments because I coughed once. Oh my god, you coughed! Like, good, fuck you. Go get your ear
Yeah,
impregnated by Jesus already. Leave me alone.
Gabriel.
Jibriel. Jibriel Jesus.
For our next video, we should talk about finally, after all this time, Simon Mangus, and we've been kind of like dilly dabbling on that whole subject, but
That's a hard one because I wanted it to be so like ridiculously scholarly that it hurt. Like you couldn't even listen to it because it was so caked in scholarship. It'd be like reading a boring ass scholar book.
yeah, I'm actually writing an article for my blog that kind of goes a little bit into it, so I'll probably just read from my own blog
Yeah,
for
that'll work.
our video. Yeah.
And then I can try to dig up all those damn notes that I had ready for it months ago,
Yeah.
like
Shoot.
5 months ago.
5 months ago.
It's
Yeah,
probably
long.
like 4 or 5 months ago that we came up, like we previewed that on there. I shouldn't have put it up,
Yeah.
but damn, it got a lot of views. That's our second most viewed video.
Yeah,
People
because
apparently
you know
want to
the
see that shit, or they just accidentally went to it thinking it was going to be something important. And then
yeah
I didn't look at the average time that it was viewed, but I bet if I look at it, it'll be interesting. Hopefully, it says the whole video is viewed. Watch this, just like viewed 2 seconds, closed it, because you can find that out. You can find
right.
out what the average length of the video was. So we'll just have this on your channel, and then I'll clone it or copy it or whatever and put it on the Aeon Arcanum channel. I need to get that thing together. It's still there though. It's got stuff on. I still got to put the Tony Sylvia interview on it.
Oh, it's not on your channel? The Tony
What?
Sylvia one?
No, yeah, it is, but I'm gonna put it on the Aeon Arcanum channel too.
Oh, okay.
I'm just putting all our episodes on there. That way, if I do my own videos and stuff, people don't have a hard time finding it on mine, even though I put it on the playlist. So it's just so it pops up more on YouTube on the feed. It gets your videos recognized more.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because it's gonna pull up, and some of them, I kind of screwed with people, and they have a different image as the thumbnail
Mm.
than the ones they originally had, so that way they'll think it's a different video, and they'll watch it again.
You know,
Average time viewed 3 minutes till they realize this is the
now,
same fucking thing.
so now we're back in our little video sessions. What do you want to do first? You want to go Sam Mangus, or do you want to do something else? Or
Yeah, for now, maybe we should just do these videos like this whenever we can, and then do the Simon thing, and maybe eventually we could start getting guests again. We still have guests lined up that agree to do the show. We just have to schedule with them.
yeah, I've been a little preoccupied with a lot of things.
But I have proof that they agreed to it, so I can just send them the thing like, yeah, you agreed to do it.
Yeah. Well, we can do let's see, Jeffrey Kupperman. We can do him.
We gotta get Rosamund Miller.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get Iceman, even though I think he's a quack. But I'm still interested to have him on.
I love to
He's
have
got a
Robert
far
Price
out there
on.
theory. He's got so many premises, I don't know how he keeps up with them. But I feel the same way about my own theory, so I feel his pain.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. I
I'd
don't
love
feel
to
like
have
he's
Robert
completely
Price on.
consistent. Oh, I'd love to have Robert Price on. He added us on Facebook, but he never responded to my message. I'm sure he gets a shit ton of messages, dude. He's pretty popular.
Yeah.
So if we can ever get him on, we'll get him on. Though I'd love to have him on. I'd fucking love to have him on. That would be great. Because he's one of those few people that I've come across where he knows a lot about the Orthodox version of Paul and the Gnostic version. He can see through the bullshit. He really can. And
Yeah.
so he may not be a Gnostic, but he understands the Gnostic point of view. He doesn't misrepresent Gnostics, just like I don't like Augustine, but I refuse to misrepresent him. I refuse to say he believes in inherited guilt, because he doesn't. I've read Book 13 of the City of God,
Mm-hmm.
where he expounds in the most detail his theory of original sin. That's his magnum opus. That's like the final word on original sin. That's what he believes about it. And so that's what you have to take as the doctrine of original sin is in that book and no other book and no other writing. It's there. That's where it comes from, at least in Augustine's view of it.
Yeah.
Because Irenaeus believes in original sin, even though people go, "Oh no, he doesn't." Yeah, he does. He believes in original sin full on. It's ancestral sin. That's the same thing, buddy. How's it any different?
Can you be a deist?
Even Augustine doesn't even. Augustine's rule on original sin is really ancestral sin, because he doesn't say it came from Adam. He said it came from the first man, or maybe it was the first men. Because evolution's compatible with her. That's another thing we need to talk about later. Xmas is a lie. Who's a user on YouTube made a good point. He's done some great videos on evolution that you need to watch, and how it actually is in Genesis, and it was taught in the East. The basics of
Who
evolution.
does it?
Xmas is a lie. Xmas is a lie.
Oh, X-Men. It's a lie.
Yeah,
Check him out.
that's the only videos of his I like. The evolution ones are really well done.
Well,
Oh yeah, we should just end this right now. And you should have watched that. You
yeah.
crap yourself again. I had you crapping all over yourself tonight.
Yeah, no, you had me. shitting myself the whole time.
I bet you when you're reading my draft of House of Cards for what I have it's like 40 pages, huh? So far.
Yeah, it's like 40 something pages. Yeah, I like
Yeah,
it.
it's
But
pretty
I mean,
long.
I thought I started
I
off
added
on
more
the
to it.
Pope's. Yeah, I love
That
reading
thing
more
is
stuff.
loaded. Oh yeah, I'm gonna make a big chapter on the popes, especially on Pope Marcellinus, how he gave up all the scriptures and then suddenly they had no scriptures in Rome anymore. All, him and the bishops gave them up, and then I don't know, 8 years later, Constantine issues 50 Bibles and makes Sunday the day of worship, and because of the sun, it makes Easter, which has to do with sun worship yet again. Was it vernal equinox, sun worship crap? And so he makes all that
I
law,
totally.
and yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I want to have Jeremy Crowback on. I'd love to
yeah, that'd be
bring that
great.
guy back. He's pretty cool. But yeah, let me end this one. So I
I
gotta
wonder what his
run.
take is on philosophy, like different ancient philosophers.
Yeah, I wanna. There's a lot of other stuff I wanted to ask him. I just kind of didn't get a chance to do it.
Yeah,
But
it's 12 a.m. Holy crap.
yeah, yeah, it's 3 a.m. here, buddy. I think we're gonna have to end this.
Yeah, in this, I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah, me
Gotta
too.
be up tomorrow. All right.
Yep.
Well, awesome. Good
That's
to have another Aeon Arcanum, you know,
on the
rant.
whim.
Yeah, on the whim like the old ones.
Yep.
All right. Well, hopefully it gets some views.
Hopefully. All
Peace.
right. Peace out. All right. And